Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Enlightened Conversations, where we invite our hosts and guests to share their views on the world, work, and their personal lives in an enlightened way. This season, we're also looking forward to engaging more with our audience, hearing your enlightened views, and answering questions and topics you would like us to weigh in on. Today's episode is hosted by Michelle Lightworker. Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here, and welcome to Season 5 of Enlightened Conversations 2023. I'm super excited to have on board a wonderful being of amazing truth, light, and extreme abundance of love, Tessa Alexa Stanford.
Hi. Having me. Hi.
It's so great to have you on board. And for those of you who don't know Tessa, she is doing some incredible things in the movement of leadership. She has been an incredibly inspiring person for people to speak up, tell their stories and speak their truth, and has worked in psychology for a number of years. And I'll just formally introduce her so that you've got an idea on what she's about and where she's come from and a little bit of her background. So Tessa is the founder of the Institute of Open-Hearted Psychology and Unspoken Global. And during her career, Tessa attained her first class honours in psychology in 2011 and specialised in holistic wellbeing interventions, trauma assessments and staff development. She's completed additional studies in nutritional medicine, emotional regulation, and the neurobiology of complex and developmental trauma, and worked with the fields of child protection, early intervention, mental health, domestic violence, alternative education, and with asylum seekers and refugees. And Tessa left her decade-long career in social welfare sector in 2016 when she became increasingly disillusioned with our systems of care and modern psychological approaches to mental health and overall well-being. So Tessa's most recent innovation is her grassroots social movement and early intervention mental health initiative, Unspoken community events. And they celebrate the courageous storytelling to cultivate courageous communities. She's also working with leaders in open-hearted psychology and encouraging that leadership to rise to a whole new level. So welcome, Tessa. Beautiful, amazing.
Thank you. Taking that all in. Thank you so much.
I know it's kind of, it's interesting, isn't it, when somebody kind of reads back to us all the things that we've done, because I know, like, when we put together our bios and stuff like that, it's often a while ago, and we just flick it to people and then go, oh wow, I have done a lot, haven't I?
Exactly. And I think, like, it's such an adventure. It's been having that, that's taken years and years, right? Like,
Yeah.
Our bios are a snapshot, but like, it's that whole adventure is so messy.
I know.
It's so lovely how it all just fits all nicely into, like, and this is what it all meant, and this is what I've created out of that mess,
I know, right? And it's interesting because, that's the abridged version. Like, we could go on and on. Like, that's, the abridged version. And I think the essence of it is, and the impulse behind your bio is very much reflective of you being in touch with what you feel is right and is a good intention for the community moving forward, to evolve the community. And so, it's not just about, I've done this, I've got honours in psychology and I'm working as a psychologist and I'm doing this. It's more saying, hang on a second, what's working and what doesn't work? And what you're doing is that pure intention of really finding things that actually work and make a difference. That's what I get from your bio.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's at the core of what, as you said, the pulse that kind of inspires me to create comes from that pain point of and frustration for myself of our systems not providing quality care to other humans,
Yeah.
And that is, if you've worked as a helping professional or experience being in the system in any way and for health, we know it's super challenging. There's a lot of amazing people who work in that field, and yet the system itself is just so challenging for true well-being, and so it was really from that place of desiring better care. I was always the annoying employee at every job that I went to, all through my social welfare career, of like, we can do better, but it has to be better. Like, why can't we do better? Like, and kind of always searching for that. And initially, like, my managers would just love and adore me, because they're like, yes, like so inspired, and, you know, let's create new systems, and let's do this, and let's try this. But then, of course, everyone was so burnt out that over time, everyone just got more and more burnt out. But I was still banging on in every team meeting, like, let's do better. Let's, you know, why don't we try it from this angle? And I was burnt out as well. But I just have always had that drive of like, this doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense, you know, how we're doing things and how we're, and even like psychology didn't fully make sense to me in the way it's taught. How we provide care didn't make sense to me. So all of those frustrations and the pain points and feeling like I didn't fit in anywhere has been the greatest blessings, because it's create spaces and have conversations and create new ways that, as you said, like, to really explore what does work, what can work.
Yeah. And like I have operated my life on spiritual assignments basically since 2005. Like, it's been like, that's how I live. And so I've relate a lot to what you're talking about because of what's happened when I was a clinical counsellor I was doing supervision for counsellors. Psychologists would come to me to get their hours up for their professional supervision, right? So I was doing that and seeing a lot of difference from the alternative methods I would use in my practice. And I thought, and that's how it evolved into education for me. But then after a short period of time, well, not a short period of time, 9 years, I then ended up in child safety, and I saw the front line of how there were so many enlightened people in there stifled by a systemic problem of how things are run, that it literally worked its way. It was like counterintuitive, like the way things were set up suppressed people's intuition to the point where I think part of the burnout would have been depression, like that sort of low-grade chronic depression where people goes, it's hopeless, like we can't change anything, we really can't do anything. It's that sort of mentality where you just get up and go to work and go, it's just not going to make a difference. And it's quite hard to watch that because in the soul of these people, it's, I want to make a difference. And so it's kind of interesting, like, to have gone through all that and then come back out there after 5 years and then gone into more of this stuff that I'm doing now for a number of years, probably about 7 years, and then go back out there into HR for 4 years and bring back what's not working there. I've done a little bit of this, and I've realised we're all in the one stream, even though people think there are two streams. It's just there's barriers that have been put in place in certain structures, but people are, I think with COVID as well, they're really realising that these barriers are in place, and there's more people empowerment to speak up, to say, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah, exactly. I love, I've loved our past conversations on this kind of system level, because I think I've seen, I kind of I did dive into the coaching industry 7 years ago after all those frustrations with the system. And feeling this like freedom, and going from a place of a lot of red tape to an industry with no tape at all.
Yeah, no tape, yes.
So it's like this freedom to create what we can create. However, what I've seen is like the other side where everyone's on this healing journey. And if, we've got this like now new multi-billion-dollar industry in coaching and personal development and self-help and kind of spiritual development. And what I saw was that there's like people can reach a point of fulfillment within themselves, yet unless we kind of integrate these worlds, like you said, they're not actually separate, but we kind of go off into this healing journey and kind of want to stay there because it feels too painful to come back down here. But we can never, there's a level of fulfillment we won't fully reach because we're not here to go, run away to Bali or live in log cabin somewhere. Like maybe some of us are, but ideally we came here to, to be on earth and to enjoy this place. So it's like, well, what can we do with all this information, with this, I want to say luxury of healing? And I know that sounds crazy because healing is very confronting and hard, but it is, I feel like, a privilege to be able to do that healing path. Like it's not available to everyone at the moment.
I think you're right. Like, because, you've worked with so many disadvantaged populations and you've seen like the bare basics sometimes are just like same, like working in child protection. It's like, do they have shoes? Do they have, it's just like, the emotional component's almost left behind, and it shouldn't be like, shouldn't just be a privilege, but often, if we're dealing with those Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you've got the basics at the bottom, it's like, it's almost like, I always like to turn it upside down. Like, let's get enlightened so that we can actually distribute more equality across needs.
I saw this brilliant flip on that model once, and I wish I had saved it because I can't credit it and I don't know what it's from, and I would have loved to explore it more. It kind of flipped it, but it actually had on the bottom was, instead of self-actualization, community actualization.
So I like that. Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. How good is that?
Our thriving is linked, like our survival is linked to, everyone else's survival, and our thriving is linked to everyone else's thriving.
Yeah.
And it takes it away from the very westernized.
It's still about me. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I really love that. And I really feel that, in terms of this, and that's where my work's really been centered on, with like, the creation of Unspoken, is how do we integrate all these worlds? How do I feel like I've worked at psychology and social welfare and community and education and coaching and business? How does all that come together? Because they all are great, but the essence of psychology gets to work through all of them. And and how do we not be part of the problem, in terms of like live kind of this fragmented existence, or kind of disconnected, or separate, I guess, where it's just about this healing journey, not actually bringing all that beautiful healing and alternative kind of solutions back into the places that need the most. And I think that's what really terrifies people. So I've had a lot of conversations recently with leaders saying, like, really admiring what I've done, in the courage that's taken to like kind of bring this kind of deeper level of healing into the community in a way it can be heard and received, right? Yes. I think that's the thing, like, it's so can be so complex when we start exploring multiverses and all the things. But it's like, how do we actually create something within child protection, within helping professions, like within everyday life for humans, because that's what we all are, like, to improve the quality of life for everyone. Like, how can we do that? How can we use our creativity to work together for that community actualization?
It's interesting, because I'm seeing this kind of almost like a it is a bit, it is a little bit like that figure eight thing. And it's almost like, in order to self-actualize a community, one needs to have some level of willingness from individuals in the community to want to self-actualize, or even be along the road a little bit to self-actualization. And it's kind of almost like I feel like this almost like a spiraling up thing going on, where we are starting somewhere. But like you said, you've spoken to a few leaders and they admire what you've done. And my sense is they're not there yet, but they're hoping, I think as a collective consciousness, we are actually starting to encourage that leadership to get there, like to put them in there when they're there, not wait till they get there while they're there, if that makes sense. And I think that's incredibly important in supporting a community, because they're sort of got, a lot of them have their hands on the purse, they have their hands on the distribution of resources. They can say, it's kind of like, yes, they can say yes to all the cows come home, but unless the resources are provided, it's a little bit of a, how does that actually work? Like you're saying, how does that actually work? So I think the thing I noticed about Unspoken was, in the eye of telling the story and telling, speaking our truth and speaking our storytelling and truth telling, what comes out of that is that it engages the we, or the community. So it's not just about, look at me, I'm talking la la la. It's more about, okay, so this is my story, these are the holes in what happened, then how can that point towards solutions, and inviting those creative solutions from our community.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's every event so far has just been so deeply heartwarming. It is, in the way the speakers share the story, as I support them in their pathway, and because it's once someone says yes to speaking at those events, they go through their own transformational process to be the person who shares their story, because these are everyday people sharing, they've been on this, a transformational journey, their hero's journey, and then now ready to like share it, right? It's like terrifying, for them. But yeah, the way they share it is in that structure of the hero's journey and where they were and where they've come from. And so that template within us, just it's inspiring, it inspires us, right? Like it's a natural archetype we'll draw on. So it's just like every, like, I hear for everyone, it's like, they'll say like, I got something from every single speaker. Like I didn't know I would, I didn't think I would, or like, but it's always like just a piece of medicine from everyone, right? It's like activating something within themselves. We've always had a speaker that will speak on intergenerational trauma and kind of moving through that and what that looks like, actually breaking the cycle and hearing the real life stories of how women and men are doing this, how people are doing this, how families are shifting because of this, not in a book, not in a Facebook post, just from a real human. It's just like, this was hard, this was messy, I did this, I came from this background, and this is what what it looks like now. Like there's just something so healing on so many levels, like of what happens in those spaces. So and it's not it's not a revolutionary idea, sharing stories, do you know what I mean? Like that it's just it's oral culture, before communication came in. Like that's obviously deeply within us to share stories and learn from stories. Like to me, it's just a very natural form of evolution and mentoring and love and support and understanding, and when we have that understanding, compassion grows.
It does.
And more love grows because of that. So for me, that's a big part of those nights and those events, and there's a whole kind of a foundation and support system and structure that will sit underneath those events for people to tap into all the time. Because it seems so simple, but sharing our story, getting it out somehow, whether it's through writing first, speaking the unspoken, getting out that shame, letting it be seen, being honest with ourselves, like the simplest things are like the most profound, I feel. And that's like through all of my experience, all of the bio, all of the things, like that's the piece that is most deeply healing, like is the medicine, like that is the pathway for love, like being deeply honest with ourselves, like being willing to express ourselves and be seen and loved for it. That's it.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I found that a lot because my journey was, through an eating disorder and also being in a relationship with a problem drinker, and I was in Al-Anon. So I was in 12-step fellowships for like a good 10 years before I even hit counselling, training and all that. And I found my healing there, like that a lot. I did a lot of other self-help stuff, but just telling my story, just hearing other people's story, so powerful, so powerful. Like, I mean, I lived for that. I just went to thousands of meetings and just like it was my food. It was, how do I remind myself that I'm more than this eating disorder? How do I remind myself that I'm more than this situation that I'm in right now? And to hear the hope that would come out of those stories, and it was so profoundly powerful. And to in those situations, like there's an anonymity and I guess you could say a respect for not interrupting, like completely, like no one would ever interrupt you. Like it wasn't like some television shows do that whole thing. That never happened. It was not allowed. Like you just literally are able to speak uninterrupted, which created a safety net. Like it really created like a huge safety net. And I have like a problem with some experiences that some people have had in situations where they have been, unveiling, pulling back the pulling open the wound for everyone to see. And I have like some problems with people like being shamed for it, like, or kind of coming in too hard, like therapists when they come in too hard and we're looking at this, what do you, I don't know, there's this energy behind you, we need to fix this for you kind of energy, rather than the reveal and potentially the support required there. So it'd be interesting to find out how you guys do it, like, you know, because I'm all against re-traumatizing people, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And well, the medicine is in that, just being with the person, right?
yeah.
And that's that can come so naturally for some of us, but for others it's a skill. I think that, you know, and so it's understanding that. And you know, I feel there's a big upskilling in our emotional maturity as humans here. So I think yes, there's the medicine as for us as humans to share our story, and of course that's like, who are we sharing to, where it's ultimately a person who knows how to hold space, like who has a level of emotional maturity that they can just sit there with you in it, witness you, love you, without trying to change, fix, do anything other than love you, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
whether it's a therapist, whether it's a human, like the work I'm focusing on now, like I do work with some therapists, helping professionals and psychologists in one of my programs and mentoring, which is really around expression and how they bring their unique expression, healing gifts into the world and more tangibly. But a lot of my work now is focused on training mentors. And so for me, that's where I've kind of found myself at home between worlds, you know, where I didn't fit into the clinical world. I just didn't. Like I didn't register with any boards. Like I didn't have enough qualifications to register, and I didn't chase them or pursue them. And the coach industry, I don't fully resonate with it fully as well, or the concept of the coach. I love coaches, and I have coach, like, you know, for some people it's exactly what they're meant to be doing, right? But for me personally, either of them is not me and what I'm here to do. So mentoring, and of course I'm all about true self-expression. So I love finding what is our true nature. And I guess I see how much, and you talk about, this secondary re-traumatization, and that's what I saw within the system, you know, and you would have seen it all the time. Kids come with, or families, humans come with their primary trauma from their family experiences, upbringing, but then within the system we would re-traumatize them through all the issues, right? The funding and the this and the untrusting relationships and just the nature of that. Same happens in coaching. So there's great things about both of these industries, and there's not so great things. Like I'm not angry at either, that just is. But for me, I'm like, well, how did we evolve without these industries, right? Like we used to survive and evolve without them. Like what would happen if we actually took them away? Like how would we learn? How would we, do you know what I mean? Like when you strip that back, then we start looking at the village kind of model, right? And mentoring, and we see, you know, we'd look at elders, and we'd look
more
at
education,
other adults, right? That would share, and how, like through storytelling, through practical experience, right? Through like, you know, so to me, that the essence of that really excites me, obviously, as you feel that it, to me, there's a couple of pieces to this. What I realize is a lot of my clients over the years were, you know, very sensitive children and people, and that really weren't supported earlier on in developing their unique gifts. And so they learned that their sensitivities was, of course, a burden and a huge pain, right? And I fully resonate with that myself, of course. And what was interesting when I started looking at, you know, villages and kind of other models and more traditional, you know, cultures, what happens is that when a young person, and it happens usually in that, you know, young adolescence phase, starts exhibiting signs of, you know, what we would call mental health issues, but just of sensitivities, maybe it's hearing voices, maybe it's some type of healing capacity, or like whatever it is, they would get recognized as having, you know, gifts, and be taken under the wing by the shaman or elder.
Yes, to like, develop those skills. Yes.
And it's like, hey, it's not an easy road, and you're not more special than anyone. You're not gonna, you know, you're not this like, you know, famous healer or whatever, but that's your role to play in the community. Like that's So we're going to look after you and help you with the ups and downs of that.
Yeah.
So you can play that role for us, because it's about the community actualization, right? So
yes,
understanding that, I then look, you look very at our Western world particularly, and that's like, well, where is that? There's no rites of passage in our adolescence. There's no mentoring like that. I'm getting goosebumps.
Yes.
Like there's no elders, there's no village, there's no adults who have like beautiful teachers who I think are the same like as what you're talking about in child protection, teachers who are trying to do amazing work within the system with their hands tied behind their backs because they're trying to reach all these curriculum goals and all these kids are struggling. And it's like, how do you help these kids, right? So I kind of saw that a lot with my clients and realized that my work was kind of becoming this kind of home base, nearly this like, hey, like, I see your gifts, like, let's like unlearn everything you learned about that being a pain point and let me show you how it's actually your greatest gift, right?
Yeah.
Not from this egotistical place. I think that's really important to land, because everyone's intuitive, right? There's not
but it's like, is it meant to be developed in this lifetime is probably the best question to be sort of tuning into, like if that's like you're saying, if that is what they're meant to do for the community, and if not, then is that going to move into something else because it has been developed, and that's really none of our business. But if you but our recognition of that is our business. I believe it's a social responsibility to recognize the gifts in each other, and a lot of that isn't happening. That is for sure.
No, that's right. Yeah. And it's so, once again, that's so healing. It's like being seen, right? And helping you, like what I ultimately do is help people understand themselves. And it's like that's through a wound of myself of not understanding, this world.
So it's I love that wound. I love that wound for you. Isn't that a beautiful wound?
So beautiful, right? Because we seek until, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So I'm really interested in developing what I call natural born mentors, and it's really from like those humans who have always felt they're here to naturally help, and in the modern day kind of shaman world, or modern day world, it looks like that they've been the person who their friends always go to for advice, that they're the person who's just always kind of played that natural counseling role. And they may work in the field, or they may be like working something totally different, but they've always just felt inclined to help, or they're that person in that field. So it's really beautiful to actually provide a model that's not clinical, that's not coaching, but is drawing on that natural mentoring in a modern day way to go, hey, look, if you do want to work with other people, there's ethical practice.
Yes, definitely. Yes. And there's the shadow side, right, of the person who's caring for people, because if one only gets their esteem from that, then there is a belief that if I'm not this, then I'm nothing. And so it's about balancing that shadow aspect as well. To make sure that they don't burn out or just put all their, I guess, self-love in that one basket for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a big piece of work that I do with people, and I had to really deconstruct for myself. I call it like the savior victim.
Yes.
Archetype, really. And when we're playing the savior, we're also playing the victim, like they're hand in hand. So it's like, and it really challenges people when they sit with it, because it's like, if they're willing to save people, there's part of them that's also willing to be saved.
Exactly.
So there is, but identifying it is so powerful, and it's not like an overnight thing where you just wake up and like like it is a dismantling of all of that. But gosh, it's freeing. And yes, it means that your worthiness is not derived from your capacity to help others. And that's what I mean about it doesn't make you better than being a healer. That's a role. That doesn't make you worthy being that. It doesn't make you unworthy, right? Like if we're outsourcing our worthiness to who we are and how much we help, that's a very dark path to lead. And well, a lot of us do that, which is why we end up burnt out,
exactly,
and resentful, and
parenting through guilt, which is as toxic as being a avoidant parent, parenting through guilt and trying to make everything all right for our kids all the time, and things to be loved, really, so that we feel that we're loved. And I think that's where it crosses the boundaries. And it's really, really good that you're acknowledging all that in that mentoring, because for natural leaders, because those are the things that are going to come up. I did a meditation in level 3 of lightworker practitioner training, where we call it in enlightening the lightworker's shadow. And it was about that very thing of where could something be hiding here for me that I need to look at, so that I'm not just coming from that perspective, I'm the saviour all the time, I'm here to rescue and I'm here because you're broken. And that's not true at all. Like, we are an impulse to, I think, light how to see, we see them and provide an example of holding that space so that they can see themselves. And then once they can, to be able to shine the light on all the dark bits that also come with that, and to also love them and to understand them, so that those aren't unconsciously working in the background, burning us out, and leading to the toxic behaviours of that other aspect of being a guiding light here.
Yeah, I love that. So beautiful. And that's just that piece of work that we do as mentors, to that self-awareness, the emotional awareness, to kind of know ourselves, really, like to know ourselves. And I think it's so helpful for and necessary for mentors to continue having mentors. I think in psych there's some great things in like the psych field and that whole industry around required supervision, and some of the ethical practices are so structured in there, which are actually really great, right? And I think some of that's really missing from coaching. Like there's lots of mental health being addressed in coaching through innovative ways, but there's also, as you said, this like re-traumatization happening from coaches not having that support, not knowing how to fully hold space, not knowing what transference is in relationship. Like I've been so like taken back from some of the stuff in coaching where it's like charging $15,000 whatever for a client and then firing them because they didn't show up, and which is all like, once again, I so get how coaching is supporting the evolution, and some coaches are just here to keep working with the people who are evolving up here. So I so get that and understand and appreciate that. But this idea of like it's happening at all levels, just that lack of understanding around how trauma and self-protection stops us from showing up and plays out in these containers and gets projected onto us as therapists. And that happens as coaches as well, like mummy issues and dad issues are projected onto us like left, right and center. Without the deep awareness of how to deal with that, if you've just done a 1 week coaching certificate or whatever it is, do you know what I mean? There's like, that's what I see is really lacking. So the coaches get upset and hurt and put in all their boundaries, and likewise with the clients. So yeah, it's a big piece. It's just a big piece. And what I'm finding is the people who are seeking me now, reaching out, desire, I guess, have seen similar things and are really desiring the ethical practice piece. They know they want to help others, but they want to do it well. They want to be part of the solution, not the problem. So like you said, like the consciousness is increasing. Like I think we're all like, for me, I'm not angry at anyone or whatever. Like I think we're all just doing our best. Like,
I agree 100%.
So I think cool, let's just keep, kind of like I was in the other system, like let's keep doing better. Like let's keep doing better. And I'm not striving for any utopia because that's ridiculous. But it's like there's this idea of protopia, and it fits most with kind of my definitions and understanding and I guess adoration for this concept of bold imperfection, right? Where it's like, let's just embrace all of us. So that protopia is just like, how do we do like 1% better each day?
Nice.
Like, as a human, as a society, do you know what I mean? Like within child protection, wherever it is, like within education, like instead of, and that's what like you're saying, it can just feel so hopeless, like that. When we look out to the world, like how do we make that change? And it's like, well, what if we all just did that like 1%, where we looked at ourselves, shared a little bit more honestly, like just 1% every day, and looked at what we could do in our systems, just 1%. So I like that, and I think that's real.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it gives us, I guess, stretches us in other ways where we're having to exercise more compassion for progress.
Yes. Yeah.
And forgive the past. Well, no, remove judgment. Another word for forgiveness. The parts of ourselves that are stumbling along and that we're noticing we've done that, or we say to ourselves we'd never do that, but the reality is that we probably have. And so it's exercising a different muscle for us, and growing a different part of our spiritual selves and expansion. So it's an interesting time that we live in. I'm retired now, so I'm doing this as a hobby. And the reason why not doing it for the money, not doing it because I don't need it, and I'm just prayed about it and got the big strong message: do what you need to do to grow you, and all the ripples come from that. And the power in that is huge. And that's not narcissistic at all. It's simply, what do I need? Like, it's the opposite. It's like, what do I actually need to focus on? And so then I'm reaching out to people that I believe can contribute to something for my growth. A little bit like supervision in that way, even though I'm not putting myself in any kind of relationship. It's a very equal relationship. It's a village thing, and it's just about acknowledging the contributions, taking them into my heart space, seeing if anything needs to be chatted about from my end or shared. When we're called to share something, it's often for the greater good. And it is about storytelling in a big way, what I'm doing, because that's what we're doing kind of all the time. And the other, so I just feel like really strongly that we are always on that continual spectrum of growing different parts of ourselves, and we're called to do that in different ways. And I've been called to come back to doing it in the way I did it a few years ago in this phase of my life, because for some reason it's both comfortable but expansive. That's the best way I can put it. So I can put all my talents to use, I can say all my knowledge, but it's also expanding me as well.
Yeah, stunning. I love it. Yeah.
It
reminds me of I just love all of it, because as you said, like, it's all storytelling. Like, we're constantly telling ourselves stories, right? Like, so for me, it's like, how do we become better storytellers, like, for our life? Life is the story of who we are. So it's a real art, I think, to tell courageous life, like tell a courageous story of life, right? But yeah, I wrote this post at the start of this.
I've got it, and I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
I've got the whole thing about your intention for this year. Is it
that? Is it that one?
I'm going to read it. That is on I've got it there. It is so freaking powerful. I was going to actually say to you, by the way, I'm going to read this thing later, and I totally forgot about it, but it's sitting there, and I just cannot wait, because when the power story is that, and I heard this the other day, and I don't have the language for it, but I can kind of communicate it. But it's when someone is telling their story, your neurons, where somebody would be teaching you something, they're not trying to teach you something, they're just sharing. But your neurons and your neural pathways are the same ones that are being activated in that other person. They're being activated in you. So the power in storytelling is not just fluffy woo-woo. It's actually neurologically healing. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it now, because everybody's probably going, what the hell is this? So I'm going to read it. So take a minute, everybody, sit back and relax, and I'm going to share Tessa Alexa Stanford's wish for 2023 and beyond. My wish for 2023 and beyond is such a simple wish. Yet I found the most beautiful and profound things in life are often the most simple. For 2023 and beyond, I wish to be me, to know and experience myself, my true self, to be the most Tessa Alexa Stanford I can be, boldly imperfect, wildly authentic, open-hearted, to be the most inspired, curious, compassionate, creative version of me, to like myself, to enjoy myself, to express myself, to evolve myself, to be honest when I identify perceived limitations in being my truest self, and to be courageous and in transcending these limitations, to open my heart to greater depths of presence, of love, intimacy, of experience, to explore consciousness through my humanity, to express my divine uniqueness through this temporary expression of humanness, to create only what only I can create, to speak in the voice only I can speak, to walk the path that is only mine to walk, to help others in only the way I can help. It's such a simple wish. It's such a simple spell I'm casting out to the universe with these words, to be me. And although it seems very me-centered, I've learned by now that the way I can best be in relationship to others, and the way I can best contribute to the world, is in my willingness to embrace and express my truest self. There is no greater inner fulfillment and no greater external impact on others than when I'm operating from this place. Anything that takes me away from this place is a distraction. I choose to live on purpose, knowing there is no grand purpose over there outside our souls. Our purpose is to be us, to know love, to experience the full range of human emotion, to learn from contrast, to be in awe of the mystery, to deepen our trust, faith, and conviction, to remember our wholeness, to express our uniqueness, to create and contribute in only the way we uniquely can. Our joy exists here, right now, in these moments, when we simplify, when we stop avoiding ourselves, stop distracting ourselves, and instead simply dare to embrace and express all that we truly are. It's beautiful.
Oh, I love that you read that out. Thank you.
It's so powerful when I read it to myself and I heard it in my own mind. I went, this cannot not be shared. It's so boom. And it's so relevant to what we're just talking about. I was like, oh, I thought about it, you said it. I'm like, oh, wow.
Thank you. Thank you for getting it, like I think, that could inspire some people, but I think those who know the path and walk their own path and do the inner work really deeply understand that when we shift internally, everything else shifts. Like that's the medicine. And if we try and skip it and we try and focus on the thing over here or there, it just crumbles. Like if it's just building stuff on illusion, if we haven't cleared that energy in here or not doing it from the greatest kind of place of love and truth within us. So yeah, thank you for getting it so deeply. It's really beautiful.
You're very welcome. And I'm glad I did it boldly and imperfectly.
The only way, you know what, is the perfect sub story to that. Last night, or yesterday, I spent the whole day business planning and just downloading kind of ideas. So I was in a very creative space. I have awesome. I'm pointing at my walls, so it's just covered in colored pens and all this beautiful stuff. And I'm working on a workshop that I'm going to do for 2023 with a similar vibe to that. But I had this glass of rosé at the end of the day, and I had
I saw that too.
So this is hilarious. So I'm just because that I really I didn't just write that post and around being me without meaning it, that really deeply is my wish. So I'm really leaning into that and just sharing more of me in all ways. And I share a lot of me anyway, but just some things that maybe I wouldn't, or I just would be that's a nice idea, or not everything's in this book, and but last night I was just I've shared something around, I'm listening to this song and drinking this, and instead of a beach retreat, this is what I want to do, a country retreat with this and that, and just shared all the bits of it that I would love and that I get here in the country. And the response was just, I couldn't stop laughing. I was just but then within moments that, then the whole idea, of course, I just received it all. And I was all right, well, this is the thing. And I planned it and did another place. And I literally have 10 people coming to this country retreat, this uncoaching country retreat that was just from that space of my true self-expression, being in divine communion, my unique communion with the divine is what I'd say, it's just I love that place of creation. We don't have to be content creators or entrepreneurs, whatever, to access that or to benefit from that beautiful experience. And that's just that experiencing that love all throughout the day, and that all those moments unfolding and the synchronicity. Like, it's just to me, it's this like magic thing about being human, when you really get to play with that energy. Like, that for me is
100%.
like that true self-expression. Like, it's co-creating.
Honey, my favorite thing on a Friday night is having a couple of glasses of wine and then going upstairs. I've got a rooftop spa and dancing to the spa with the music turned up loud. That's my favorite thing. I'm just so lucky to have a spa that actually comes up to here. Like, when you're standing, comes up to here. So we can dance, and Tony and I just dance around the spa and have a great time. And we're just so lucky, because most Friday nights it's after about 8 o'clock, there's no one up there. So we just have it to ourselves for about an hour. So I'm all about the singing, all about the dancing, and all about the laughing. Like, how they have that thing. When was last time that thing where the person's sick and they go to see the elder in the community, and they don't know what the origin of their sickness is, and he asks them 3 questions: when was the last time you laughed? When was the last time you sang? When was the last time you danced? And I think that's a big, huge symbol of our healing, is when we are able to laugh and let it out and dance and sing. And I'm always singing all the time. Singing. If I'm not singing out loud, I'm singing in my head. I think that replaces a lot of the negative tape and programming that used to swirl around. And it's just not. It's an empty space there, so there has to be some music playing. So, turn on the disco music, people. Let's do this.
I love this. Yeah, and once again, it's like the simple things are the most profound, right? Like, what happened before all this? Like, we're just so filled with information and things and what we should be doing, and plus all our stories. So it's like, get back to basics. Like, it's have fun. Like, it's meant to be fun here. Like,
I loved it. I clicked boom on your post, because I was like, boom, because I was like, Creedence Water Revival, and let's do this. It's great. It's all fantastic. I think that it gives people that levity and safety at the same time, so they know they're safe, but they also know that this is about also. Yes, we explore the darkness, but then there's also this other aspect where we're alive, and I think that also helps people to let it out. Like, I remember in my early 20s, I used to go to do some self-development courses with a lady called Shirley Smith, and it was called Recovery Resources. And we had inner child workshops, we had family systems workshops, we had self-esteem workshops, all these workshops, relationship workshops, all based on family systems recovery and inner child work and John Bradshaw and all that sort of good stuff that you go down and heal your child and all these. But at the end of every session, we would be singing and dancing to a song. And that's when a lot of the tears would flow. That's when a lot of the energy would move, that you thought, I'm sitting here and I just can't move this energy. And then that's when it would actually move. And we actually were in the joy and there was a few songs that we'd sing, and a few would be maybe take us to another place, but then lift us. And it's very powerful what you posted in that post.
Thank you. It's what I needed ultimately, like, it's been part of my huge integration, in 2020, and with COVID, and my dad died from cancer, so it kind of brought me back to the region, to be spending more time with him. But I never thought I'd move back to the country, but it's been such a huge piece of my integration and bringing everything full circle. And like, there's a simplicity that exists in the country and on the land, and my dad was always trying to teach me it. Like, it was always like, just want you to be happy. And it was a very simple man, and it was like, in my mind, I was like, nope, there's answers out there. I need to go find them. Like, it's not as simple as this. Like, I got to go everywhere. It's got to be hard. It's got to be complex. I got to learn everything. But I come back, here, and I'm just like, right, like, it's just about like having fun, and how can I be an everyday human, like, and have the depth that I have, and still, and have fun, like, and I hold all my spaces like that. And so Unspoken events are very much in that frequency. So it's a frequency of celebration, and I've been getting a lot of feedback about this from the events, which I love, that this is like really being picked up on. People are saying like, hey, that was like a really deep it's like some deep stuff in there, and yet it was so like fun and heart-opening and heartwarming and just light. So because that's who I am, and I never felt like I could fit in the world because I was so deep, but also I just wanted to have fun, like, as a kid, all of me. And so it's like I just had to create that world where I can do all the deep stuff and have a good time doing it, like,
Love that.
So these events are also that, like, I know when we had the country gala here last year, the Unspoken, it was all the deep stories, and then we had an amazing DJ and old country songs, we're all just singing, and and just like, so what I love as well about that particular, like, those events is similar to how I've been talking about this kind of perceived separate worlds that kind of operate in the system and spirituality. Like I created the event that I wanted to go to because I was like, there's like, I could go to the pub on a Friday night here, or I could like drive somewhere a few hours away and like go to a cacao ceremony and like howl at the moon. And I'm like, I love a bit of both of those, but like they don't actually fulfill me. Like I want to be in the pub but having deep conversations and maybe a shot of cacao, and I also want that shot of tequila and to have a good sing and dance. Like that's what I want to live in. Like I want to live in a world where these aren't separate, where it's not all people going to the pub like scared to talk about their emotions and all trying to be like this.
Exactly.
And I don't want to go to the beach with the moon and the cacao where we forget that we're meant to be here on Earth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. If you're ever in Caloundra on a Friday night, rooftops bar, wine, rosé.
I'm keen.
Got the boombox. Take the boombox up. We are eclectic music-wise. We'll do disco, country, blues, rock and roll, grunge, hot psychedelic, whatever, I don't even mind. Whatever it is, it's all good.
Careful. You might have a whole thing here. Be careful. It might be a ticketed event soon enough.
Yeah. And so this is one question too that you ask everybody it's a bit of a spoiler alert that you put on your Facebook page, but I love it. And you ask people when they come to you, this at some point during the conversation. So I'm gonna ask you, and the purpose behind it is obviously to figure out what's brought them to this point. And the question is, why are we here? And you ask that. I'd like to ask you that. Just
I see what you're doing here, and I appreciate that. What are we doing here? Oh. There's lots of things and answers I could give you from my head, but ultimately, I think it's just to share love, to share my unique expression of love on this planet, and to bring some realness to that expression, in the hope that anyone who's watching this can be inspired to come back into their heart and to really play with their own true self-expression, that whatever those kind of layers of true self-suppression are, that's our divine privilege to work through, and that they often like are the greatest gifts. So it's not something to be avoided. Like we get to go there, and like we haven't touched on all the things, my experiences. We don't need to, like we've just talked about all the creations, but I didn't wake up one day and create all this stuff and be this person. Like it was through all the struggles so much, and personally and professionally, that got me here. So I think that's
it's like it might have kind of come from a place of the parts that we really think need to speak out, but the truth is all the parts need to speak out. The parts that want to party, the parts that want to sing and dance, all the parts that want to not have a divided world. And I think that's it's a beautiful. It feels like an evolution, and it feels like it's really growing into something more than itself, which I thought it might, because often these things do. They take on a life of their own, and they fulfill the purpose that we thought they did, but there's more.
Exactly. it's yeah, I think ultimately this and anything I'm sharing, like I would love it to be a permission slip, and all the events I can create like a permission slip to be our true self. Do you know what I mean? To find out, and even if we don't know who that is, that's totally fine. Like that's
Okay.
part of the quest, and it's no like race.
It's an adventure. No, it's an adventure, right?
Life. Like, what else are we going to do on this planet? Like, for me, it's all adventure of life and love, and it's rich, like in our learning and all that contrast, like the pain and the what I call true self-suppression. That's rich material for us to express ourselves, to be heard, to create what only we can create. You know, to speak in the voice that only we can speak. Like those words that you read of mine before, and for sure, like Unspoken and all my creations, and creatives certainly know this, but I found it particularly with all my creations, but a different feel with Unspoken is that it's absolutely healing for me as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I consistently wanted to put all these other people on stage and just have a little time on stage. And what I found each event and just through the whole process is that there's no escaping this. Like, it is through my healing, it's through my willingness to put myself on stages or to share this message and be this boldly imperfect, very freaking imperfect human, and share all of me and let myself be loved, that is demonstrating a new way, you know, that creates a space for speakers to come up to you know, for people to be there for however big this goes, for people, for, you know, for us to go, hey, like, it's possible. Like, I was terrified and I didn't want to share all these parts of me. Like, I've had people in the room, you know, from all walks of my life, you know, where I couldn't escape anything. You know, it's the most like terrifying things that I've had to do is, you know, get up in these rooms and hold these spaces and have like kind of the audacity to say this, hey, this might work. Yet that's the gift in itself. And I think without even doing any of my teachings, just like witnessing that and being in the experience of courage itself, like, is so healing and so inspiring.
It is. Well done, Tessa. I celebrate you, all of you, all the bits, every bit. And how can people find you, just before we sign off, so that if they want to grab onto any events, where's the best place to find you? Lovely.
Yeah, TessaAlexa.com. Everything's on there, at Tessa_Alexa on IG, or you'll probably see my name here, Tessa Alexa Stanford. That's on Facebook. And
by the way, everybody, it's Alexa is Alexa. That's the correct spelling, yes. And Stanford is STAN for Nelly, FORD. So if you need to find the beautiful Tessa Alexa Stanford, that's the correct spelling. Well, thank you so much for sharing, all of you. I've totally enjoyed it, and it's so resonated with me because I'm here growing me, you're over there growing you, and just in doing that, we're creating community, and I think it's a beautiful example of bold imperfection, and that we're both expanding through that, and that's really inspiring, I think, for anybody who's listening.
Thank you for having me. I love our chats. I love these spaces with you, so thank you.
Thank you, lovely. Okay, everybody, well, we're heading off to finishing another episode now, and we'll see you next time on Enlightened Conversations. Bye for now.